Hey guys, welcome to Facts Tell. I'm Sina.
I'm Pablo.
So in today's episode, let's talk about China threat narrative.
Remember to click like and subscribe if you like our show.
Recently, an annual report of worldwide threat to the national security of the United States has been released. It talks about all kinds of threats, but the first chapter and almost 6 pages are all about China.
6 pages?
Yeah.
Wow, that's really long. So what have we done that they have to write 6 pages? But the thing is, the China threat narrative is not something new. As a matter of fact, it lasts for many, many years.
That's right. It can date back to the 19th century gold rush in America. So it has over 100 years of history. Let's start from the very beginning in this episode. I think it's scarcely believed now that in 1849, just about 50 Chinese, they lived in California.
50.
Yeah. But in 1876, I think more than 110,000 Chinese, they were working in the state, having been enticed by the so-called gold rush.
Well, I'm sure many people are familiar with the gold rush, right? Yeah. But there's something that most people do not know.
I think the thing people don't understand is why there are so many migrating Chinese suddenly appeared in the U.S.
Right?
What is really? How do they know? Suddenly there is gold that has been discovered in California. So that's because the master of vessels back then, they helped to spread information in Chinese ports, right? Just like via all kinds of pamphlets, right? Those colorful pamphlets depicting that there are gold hills of California that have been found out. So those vessels, they transported thousands of Chinese to the U.S. West Coast where they made a lot of money.
But their presence, they created a potential risk for cultural friction. And it really did happen.
Yeah, it did happen. So I think when gold became hard to find, white people there, they became like less tolerant of the Chinese.
Yes. And anti-Chinese sentiments, they emerged and immigrant laborers were forcibly removed from the mining fields.
And when the gold rush ended, Chinese Americans were considered cheap labor because they work hard, right? As all Chinese do, they work hard and they accepted reasonable wages. So they can find employment as farmhands, gardeners, domestics, laundry workers, and most famously, railroad workers.
Oh, yes. I think that a lot of people, they work as railroad workers back then.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
Yeah, so it seems that they were needed, right, by the early California civilization.
I think they component like a major part of the civilization that formed the California and even the U.S.
Yeah, that's right, especially the West Coast.
But then things started to get worse.
Yeah.
By the 1870s, a widespread economic depression had hit America, and jobs become scarce.
Yeah, I think that's what is scary about the situation, because due to the decline of the post-Civil War economy, bigotry against Chinese labor soared, and the labor leader like Dennis Kearney, and his Working Men's Party, along with California Governor John Bigler, they blamed the Chinese for depressing wages, and that really, I think, fueled the anti-Chinese legislation.
It's really interesting. They started to blame the Chinese.
Yeah, suddenly.
So you can see that the U.S. politicians, they started 100 years ago to blame their problems on something or somebody else. In this case, it was a racial or a national group.
Yeah, it's like, so that's not something new, because nowadays they have become even more dexterous at this kind of thing. They diverting people's attention to an external enemy so that, people pay less attention to domestic issues.
Yeah, of course. So why don't we talk about the Chinese Exclusion Act? I think it's very interesting to talk about here.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I think back then, one of the federal laws, the Chinese Exclusion Act, signed by President Chester Arthur in 1882, it prohibited the immigration of Chinese laborers for 10 years, and its provision extended to merchants, teachers, students, tourists, and even diplomats.
Well, I literally do not understand why they banned diplomats,
I mean, they banned everybody. As long as you're Chinese, you're banned.
Yeah.
That's what happened then. Yeah. So I think this law, it's really cruel, right? The Chinese Exclusion Act, I think it was the first and only major U.S. law ever implemented to prevent all members of a specific nation group from immigration into the United States.
So as we said previously, the early immigration ban was preceded by the growing anti-Chinese sentiment, anti-Chinese violence, right? So even then, in the 19th century California, in the United States, the life of a Chinese immigrant had become rather difficult because they have to face a lot of restrictions, bans, challenges in their life.
Even violence.
Yeah.
Well, it was horrendous, absolutely horrendous. You see the first violence against the Chinese happening in the gold fields of California in the 1850s. You see officials, law enforcement, white law enforcement officials turning a blind eye to it. For a very long time, Chinese could not testify against whites in court, which just meant open season on Chinese immigrants, because if you had 2 Chinese witnesses to a murder, then you had no court case if you didn't have any white witnesses. And so the violence was extreme against them. Their arson was incredible. Many Chinatowns were burned to the ground.
In the book American Exodus, Second Generation Chinese Americans in China, 1901 to 1949, Professor Brooks illustrates what the situation was like for descendants of Chinese, right, in the U.S., and why almost half of the Chinese Americans born in the U.S., they moved back to China at the time.
They moved back to China.
Yeah.
But above all, these essay writers were young people who, because of their race and ancestry, had almost no chance of experiencing the same treatment as their white peers, even in the best of times in pre-war America, meaning no chance to live in the same kinds of neighborhoods, work in jobs equal to their educations, or enjoy almost any social or economic mobility because of the racism they encountered everywhere. And of course, these young people had the grave misfortune of coming of age in the midst of the Great Depression, which simply compounded the effects of the racism they already faced.
So they fled racism, right? You know what's extraordinary is that was at a time when people from around the world flocked to the US. But these Chinese Americans, they realized how much racism, unfairness, and discrimination American could bring him, so they left.
Right.
Yeah.
And let's fast forward to today during our COVID period, you know? Because it's like a major period of the world. The experience is also the same. The US government claimed the origin of the disease was man-made rather than natural.
Yeah.
As many renowned experts, they reckon the hate crimes against Asian groups skyrocketed.
Yeah.
You know, I have read many news on the website about many Asian people, they were attacked in the US for no good reason. You know, some of them are even like brutal, and some of when you see this video, you're angry all the time.
Yeah, I'm angry, and I think I'm terrified because I'm an Asian as well. And you know what? You are right, Pablo. According to a report released by Stop AAPI Hate, a national coalition tracking hate crimes, more than 11,000 hate incidents against Asian Americans were reported across U.S. between March 2020 and March 2022.
That's a large number.
Yeah, right. So I think just like what you mentioned, when you read this kind of article or when you watch this kind of video, I think personally I feel terrified and so angry. Yeah.
You know, as an Asian, you know, it's getting more and more dangerous if you live in America, because you might get attacked for no good reason when you walk on the streets and you're doing absolutely nothing, right?
Yeah, like we are absolutely innocent people, okay?